Well, hello guys. It's the Elsa Kurt Show. I'm your host, Elsa Kurt, and today I have a really great guest on. We're going to be talking about, some of the things that are going on today. There's quite a lot going on, so it's going to be a really great conversation. Her name is Lissette Carter, and she's going to be coming up right after this.
A few years ago, my dad and my brother were teasing me about how little I knew about the United States. They asked me, is the United States a democracy or a republic? Obvio, it's a democracy. As they laughed at me, I thought, wait a minute, do I really know the difference? As embarrassing as that was, it drove me to dive deep into getting to know the foundations of the United States. It drove me to study and research the original intent of the Constitution, to learn an unfiltered version of U.S. history, to understand how politics and government operate, and to discover the dangers of socialism. Burying myself into the fundamentals of this nation reminded me of softball practices with my dad. We would train in the rain at night in 100% summer humidity, and anytime my game was off, he would take me right back to the fundamentals. If I lost focus, he'd dump water over my head and say, break time is over. I've come across many Americans like me who are off their game. They question what they were taught in school about history. With all I learned, I wanted to create a digestible resource for the average American to learn or even spruce up their knowledge about the very country we live in. The Rookie American Guidebook and podcast will help Americans get back to the fundamentals of true U.S. history, government, and politics. You'll also learn how to make informed decisions about your communities, representatives, and your nation. Break time's over.
All right. So, as promised, I have Lissette Carter on today. She's pretty amazing. And I shouldn't say this right after I said she's pretty amazing, but we have some similarities here. We're both wives, we're both moms, we're both podcasters and authors. So I'm really fascinated by the lane that you're in. So if you could give us a little bit of your background.
Well, I live in central Massachusetts. I've been here for about 12 years. I'm a mom, as you said. I have a 6-year-old daughter, and I have three stepdaughters that are much older. They're 19, 20, 20. And I have a lot. I'm doing a lot. I am an author. I'm a podcaster. I've written 3 books. Obviously, can't hold a candle to you, Elsa. Someone says when Juan told me, "Wow, this girl has written over 20 books." I'm like, "Oh, I'm nobody."
It's my ADD.
So I've no. I mean, it's the fruit of your work, and I have written a book on Christian-based books based on one on pregnancy, one on marriage, and another on covering the nation, really true U.S. history, government, and politics. And initially, it didn't really start out that way. I have an athletic background. I went to school to play softball. Really, I didn't really go to study. I went to school in Puerto Rico. And God called me out of that. I moved to the States. I was born here in Massachusetts, went back, moved back to the States, to Boston specifically. And there I began to have a hunger for entrepreneurship. I began to have a hunger for learning history, and I had no idea why. And then I met my husband, moved out to Central Mass. And from then on, I decided to write books. Was an intentional. The first one was really just filling a need. It was called Rookie Mommy, as an ode to my softball, baseball days. The second one is Rookie Wifey, which is about relationships. And really the original intent for marriage. And because I have a Christian background, my goal was to really stick it to the devil, because I understand that the devil's goal is to get rid of marriages, destroy families, and really destroy the nation. And so with my third book, as I prayed on, what my third book would be, God revealed to me that I needed to start a podcast called The Rookie American. and then also have a book following that. And here I am today.
That's such a great title for your podcast. I love that so much. It's brilliant.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
that is quite a journey, and I love how you reference it, that it was really a calling for you from God and just pointing you in the right direction. And and I have to be honest, I was not raised religious, and we were not. I was brought up Catholic, but in name only. Really, we never did it, and it wasn't until adulthood that I really started to um, find a place of comfortability with religion, because it was unfamiliar to me. So I really always love listening to someone who's really strong in their faith, who really knows what they're talking about and understands the Bible and all of those things. Like I just want to be a sponge and learn really. Now I know that doesn't represent everyone. Do you get a lot of resistance, a lot of backlash for being so vocally religious?
I actually get a lot of resistance from my fellow Christians, to be honest. I mean,
Mm.
I told God, I said, if you give me a platform to speak in Boston during the pandemic, I will spread the gospel for you and I will help people get to heaven, because I started to see a lack of pastors stand up in any of these rallies. They were gone. And so, when I would give a speech on history, or, the original, Massachusetts was the OG of freedom, and I would tie in education. And then at the end, I would give people an invitation to accept Jesus. That I feel like was pressed upon my heart by God. And not a lot of rallies wanted that, and specifically Christian rallies that were happening up here in Massachusetts, where I would tell them beforehand, hey, listen, I'm going to be speaking. If you'd like me to speak, I'd like to give the opportunity for people to accept Christ. And the people that were accepting towards it were non-believers, because
Mm.
they understood that there was something missing in the nation, that there was a hole that needed to be filled. And most Christians were like, no, we're not doing that. We don't want to bring religion into it. We want to just kind of keep everything the same. Whereas, this nation was built upon religious freedom. If it wasn't for Christians, we wouldn't have the nation that we have today. Christianity is actually the most tolerant of all of the religions out there. I mean, I can't go to Afghanistan and say that I'm Christian. It doesn't, I can't
Mhm.
do that in China. And so, but here in America, you have the freedom to worship whatever you want to worship. And that was paved by Christians.
Yeah, those are really, really great points. And I'm wondering, and I don't know the answer, and I'm hoping you know the answer. Do you think that the resistance is based out of fear of backlash, that people have just kind of lost their backbone and are afraid to stand up to with for their convictions, because of the aggressiveness of the left? Or do you think we've gotten to a point where it's apathy, where they just don't care enough?
I believe 100% that it is fear. Fear is in the Bible. It is definitely a tool that the devil uses to numb Christians, and to numb people really. And in the Bible, it says fear is actually a spirit. And so when Christians come out and they say, "Hey, we're not going to be talking about Jesus. We want everybody to come together," that is a socialist tactic. Socialism has been secretly infiltrated into the United States, specifically in seminary schools, and they have made Christianity a socialist religion, to the point where they're saying, hey, to each their own. I don't want, if they want to remove God out of schools, to each their own. They can do that. And we have seen a decline in the morality of this nation the moment that they started to do that. In the
Mhm.
1600s, when public school was first created in Massachusetts, the reason why they wanted to create public schools was to teach kids how to read the Bible, not because they wanted to keep the same religion throughout the nation, but because they wanted to prevent tyrannical laws long term. And they knew that if you kept children illiterate, which is what the devil wanted, that you would have socialist laws in the nation. And it was called the Old Deluder Satan Act in Massachusetts at the time. And so you can see the decline of the morality of the nation because of that. And yes, I do believe some Christians, they have become lukewarm. And the Bible is very specific about what happens when you're lukewarm. You know, God will spew you out of the mouth if you're not hot or cold. And I, at this time, if I go tomorrow, I don't want God to say to me, how come you didn't tell them? And I don't want to be the one saying, well, I was afraid of my government. I was afraid of what people would say. I don't want to be that person.
I love that. I love your strength and conviction, and your heart behind that. I'm just trying to picture somebody. I'm just trying to fathom somebody trying from an opposing viewpoint, trying to come at you because you are fact loaded. You have a whole database of information. I mean, you have truly done your homework in every aspect. Um, I'm actually curious, what made you get so interested in that aspect of history that you are so knowledgeable? Is that in like your family? Do you have historians in your family that have that background?
Not at all.
No, it's
My
just a
a lot of
calling.
my family, they're on the left.
Really?
They're all on the left. Yeah, I was raised Catholic just like you. You know, I've
Mhm.
always been kind of like the black sheep of my family where if I asked, you know, well, why do we need to learn algebra? Do you guys use that? And they would be like, no. And I'm like, well, why would I listen to you? And I feel like God was always with me, always asking questions. And he would always say to me, ask questions, even when I was young. And because I asked a lot of questions and nobody could give me answers, I didn't give respect to where respect was due. And
Mm.
I felt in my heart, it just became a hunger probably about 6, 7 years ago just to study history. I loved it. I loved reading the autobiography of Ronald Reagan. I loved reading about Ben Carson. I loved reading about socialism and at the heart of socialism, what was the original intent of that? Because these things get repeated throughout history. And if people don't understand their history, and if there's a, why are they taking history out of public schools? I wanted to know what was in history that was so threatening to the next generation. Why were they trying
Mhm.
to keep the next generation from that?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's they're such important questions and points to bring up because people are so numb and blind to what's happening, to what's really going on, and that agenda. And you touched on it before that this is something that's been going on for a very, very long time. And it's been right underneath our noses, and we didn't see it. And now here we are at this, what really does feel like a spiritual war is what's going on right now, I think, in the world, in this country. And there are still so many people who don't see it, who think that we're being ridiculous, that we're, conspiracy theorists, that we're crazy. But all the evidence is there. They are trying to erase and rewrite history over and over again. Tell me some of the things that you are seeing going on that are playing out right now that you think bringing people to faith would help and change? It's kind of a broad question. So,
Well, for one, the stance on abortion, which was the latest
mm,
one, I think that if many people understand that life is something that is breathed by God, and that it's uh, a biblical issue. You know, I mean, the first instance that you see in the Bible of a baby having life is when Jesus's cousin leaped in the womb
mm,
of his aunt, and you know when he saw or when he knew that his cousin was in this is like a terrible, I'm totally butchering this, but you know when you know there's an instance in the Bible when the baby leaped because he knew baby Jesus was being
mm,
um was in the womb. And so you know just like little things like that in scriptures, like you know I knew you before I formed you in the womb. You know there are eternal consequences for turning your back on life and for choosing death when it is something that is God ordained. Who are we, even in rape, who are we
mm,
to say that, you know, we should get rid of that life? Because that is something that has been brought by God. There are many, many people trying to have children right now that can't for many, many different reasons. Um, and it's just a matter of prioritizing, okay, what can we do as believers to let people know God loves you and there's a purpose for your life. You weren't just a clump of cells, you weren't just an amoeba that
Right.
they teach us in science, that has no purpose. And I believe that when you teach people there's a specific purpose for their life, God has a will for your life. So does the devil. A lot of people blame God for what the devil is responsible for, many Christians especially. And
Mm,
so, when you tell people God wants good for you, he loves you, there's a reason why you're here today. It's not to be depressed in a corner. It's not to be ignorant of what's going on. It's for that you to have life and life more abundantly. And there's a specific path for you at this point. And showing them the love of God, I believe the initial showing of that will really turn their stances on these issues that are happening today.
hmm One of the most common things that non-believers will say, or people, not even just non-believers, people of maybe little faith will say, um, and I'm sure you've heard it 1,000 times over, is if there's a God, why does he let bad things happen to good people? What's the
Mhm.
answer to that? Is there an answer to? I know there's an answer to that. What would be the answer to that?
So God allows, we live in the devil's kingdom on earth. That is what happened when God told Satan, because initially he was an angel, and God put him on earth and said, "This is your domain." So God knows of everything that's going on, because this is the devil's realm. The Bible is specific that God is good and he is good all the time. And John 10:10, there's one scripture that really sums up the essence of the Bible. And it's, the devil came to steal, kill, and destroy, but Jesus came to bring life and life more abundantly. It's all in one scripture. And so when the bad things happen to people, they immediately say, "This is God. God permitted this." Yes, he permitted it, but it's not his will. It's not his will for you to have death in your family. It's not his will for you to have cancer. That's not God's doing. It's the devil's doing. And I think that
Mm,
message has been lost in Christianity. It's a fighting message. It's a mentality switch where, if I know the devil tried, and this has happened when I wrote my marriage book, there was an attack on my marriage like no other. And I had to
mm,
realize where that fight was coming from. It was coming from the devil. It wasn't coming from God to teach me a lesson. That doesn't happen, because we have free will. How would God know that I'm going to lean into him more to be stronger? Or I could choose to be a crackhead after that. That's what
right.
free will is. So, there's, when you learn that the God has a will for your life, but does the devil, there's a huge mindset shift in battle. Like, let's battle the
Mhm.
devil. Let's battle this anxiety. Let's get rid of this depression, because those are enemy tools that the enemy uses. So all of the bad that happens on earth, yes, God permits it, but it is not his will. It's permitted because this
Mhm.
is Satan's kingdom.
Mhm. And we were given free will. That was a choice that we
Right.
made, right? We chose free
Hmm.
will, and that means that, we can choose which path we go down. And but I always felt like, God will always put the path in front of you, but you have to choose to take it. Is that
Right.
right?
I believe
Yeah.
so. I believe he gives everybody a glimpse of, this is the right way, and if you choose
Mhm.
not to accept it, then that's your choice.
I love that, and it's baffling to me. I have to be honest, it's baffling to me when people turn away from that, because for nothing else at all, the reassurance of that, I think, is one of the most comforting things that you could ever find. So to turn away from that, to resist that, is actually bizarre to me. Because you would think, just as a human being, you would want goodness and light and peace in your life, and
Mhm.
and guidance through your most difficult times, and that knowledge that there is a presence there for you that's rooting for you. And I think that's so powerful. Which kind of leads
Mhm.
me to, tell me a little bit about Rookie Revival Ministries, another name I love. Tell me what you do with that.
So Rookie Revival is a side ministry that I have. Just as I had mentioned before, I had asked God, listen, if you give me a platform to speak at any of the rallies, I'll do an altar call. I'll bring my own Bibles. And I want to teach people, just like the old Deluder Satan Act started public school to teach kids the Bible. I want to teach people how to read the Bible, because I find that a lot of Americans have Bibles. They just don't know how to read them, or they just don't read them, period. And so I like to think of Bible as an acronym: basic instructions before leaving Earth. And so I wanted to make sure that I got Bibles in the hands of people that gave their lives to Christ. And so the first time that I did that, it was at the Boston State House. There was a freedom rally there. I spoke on the history of Massachusetts, and then I did an invitation to accept Jesus. And I had only brought 20 Bibles with me. That's all the money that I had to give for Bibles. And I brought a suitcase, and after I gave that invitation, uh, everybody came at me, and there were about 1,000 people that put up their hands, which was, I just asked God for one, just give me one person to spread the gospel to. There were about 2,000 people there, about 1,000 people put up their hands. I said, I only, only have 20 Bibles, guys. I don't have a lot. And so they came to me, and literally they started throwing money at me. And what's interesting is the first person to ask to give me money was a lesbian. And she was
Mhm.
like, we need this. We need this. And they were just by the end of the night, I had $700 for Bibles.
That's
So I had
amazing.
a whole list of people that needed Bibles as well. So from then on, I just kind of rolled it into a ministry and said, hey, listen, I want to have something concrete where we can distribute Bibles if, people give me money for Bibles. And I also have a class where I have on a bookmark in the Bible on how to read it, how it was written, where to start, how to pray, just like the very basics of becoming a Christian.
That's amazing. So tell me, I'm curious, what has been the biggest challenge with all this? Was it the podcasting? Was it the books? Was it getting the message across? What's been the most challenging part of all of this?
The most challenging is definitely has been the persecution from family.
Mm,
The podcast was very simple. I mean, you can YouTube anything and learn how to do anything. So, the
so true.
podcast was simple. The writing was simple. Obviously, publishing is always a pain in the neck. Maybe for me, maybe not for you right now, but for me, it was. All of that has been pretty seamless. What did get under my skin was the persecution from my family, and because Puerto Rico, they only have one kind of media out there, and it's left wing
Mm,
media. They don't have anything else. So when I was out there
wow.
for the majority of 2020, I noticed that all of their media, there wasn't one independent media outlet, what right wing, nothing. And when I decided to start my podcast, it was there when God put it upon my heart, when He said, "Go now." And I encountered a lot of resistance from my family, mostly because of how I felt about the pandemic. I refused to wear a mask here. I refused to put one on my daughter. I made sure I found a good school for her that was a homeschool based, love America, love Jesus kind of feel, where I never had to worry about her getting a jab or a mask. I worked really hard for that. Even if people called the cops on me here for not wearing a mask, I didn't care. And I think that really did upset a lot a lot of people that were close to me, to the point where they wouldn't see me. They chose not to see us, and that's you know a lot of people can say, what, that just comes with the territory. You just take it. But I'm going to be honest, that was a real blow to me and to my family.
Yeah, I would imagine so easily. Yeah, I've had friends and family members, who have stepped away, or I've had to step away from them because they couldn't agree to disagree, and they couldn't find that middle ground where they felt like, okay, well, we feel differently about this, so we'll either not talk about it or we'll dance around it, or any of these things. And yeah, that is sad because these are people that you know and love and that you believed up until that point truly loved you and cared for you and your best interests, and that's hurtful. Yeah, there's no way around that. You can stand strong in your beliefs and your convictions, but it doesn't make it hurt any less, for sure. And it's sad for us, really, right, too, to see people living in fear, like their existence is fear-based, and that's heartbreaking to watch because you know how unnecessary it is. So I'm sorry you had to experience that, but I'm getting to know you a little bit here, and I see your strength and your earnestness and your conviction. So I know you're navigating that all as best as possible.
Hmm. Oh, thank you. I
Um,
appreciate it.
Oh, of course, absolutely. Now tell everyone where they can find you, everything about you, where they can follow your ministries, all the good stuff.
Everything is located on rookierevival.com. You can find me on social media at thelissettecarter.com as well, where I release information regularly. It is shadow banned, so just go to rookierevival.com and subscribe just to make sure that we are all connected all the time.
Outstanding. And your books, are they also through the website? Can they get them on Amazon, any other places? I don't want to send them away from your website.
Yeah, just get everything right on the website. I'm trying to minimize the spotlight on Amazon right now, but everything is right there
Yes.
on the website.
Outstanding. I did see, I did go visit your website. It's a beautiful website, very easy to navigate. As you know, as somebody with website person and constantly on the computer, I know people care about that. That's important to be able to navigate these things easily, and it's a beautiful site. So well done.
Thank you.
And when your podcast, when do you air? What's your cycle for that?
I'm in talks with that right now, I believe within the next 2 weeks, next week or so.
Outstanding. Okay. Terrific. I
Mhm.
love it. Lissette Carter, the Rookie Revival Ministries author, mom, wife, the whole works. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. It was great talking with you.
Thank you, Elsa.
All right, guys. This has been the Elsa Kurt Show. That was Lissette Carter. Go follow her and check out her website, and we will see you in the next episode. Take care.